when some people listen to you and they say that you are demarketing Nigeria.
Demarketing Nigeria. The West is not stupid. The world sees us. They know the emperor is naked. They see us. The world has become, in truth, a global village. The Natasha Akpoti thing was on Sky News a couple of days back. I've been on international websites and I've seen them discussing us. When the world look at us, they see us without the filters that we wear, the filters and blinkers of ethnicity, of religion, of partisanship. The world does not see that. They don't know the Igbo man from the Yoruba man. They can't tell the Fulani man from the Ijaw man. They just see a bunch of irresponsible people incapable of governing themselves or envisioning a future for themselves and their children. They just see a people who can't seem to get it together. We were, I don't know where we are today, but we were once upon a time the 6th largest producer of crude in the world. The only refinery we have in our country can't get crude from our country. He has to go and be buying crude. Even if you buy from Nigeria, he has to buy it in dollars and then sell in dollars so that a people who are already pauperized might be further pauperized. Is that a country? What kind of hope does that inspire? The world is looking at us. If we don't want to tell ourselves the truth, that's a different thing. We might elect to wear the blinkers that has prevented us from seeing.
Is our problem that of morals or that of education?
Our problem is not single dimensional. What we have is a complete systemic collapse. Our educational system is gone. Our electoral system unfit for purpose. Our judicial system not producing any equity or justice. Our police, they joke. A police is meant to be law enforcement, right? What laws do our police enforce when the law does not rule? So they are forced to enforce impunity. What laws are the judiciary interpreting when they must say what the organ in the executive wants? So they begin to speak from both sides of their mouth, and you cannot rely on judicial precedents. And when you even read some judgment, if you have any legal education whatsoever, you become almost sickened by the realization that judicial anarchy is upon us.
Nigeria is destined to fail, said Dele Farotimi. All right, so once again, we thank our daddy Dele Farotimi for speaking out once again. These are one of the people that we have in Nigeria that always speak out, regardless of the situation. But I was surprised the last time he went to court. I think one of the conditions or bail conditions they gave him was that he's not going to make a public post. But in the recent days, he has been talking. Maybe it has been lifted, I don't know. But we really thank him. You know, after watching this video, please, I beg you, take a little time and watch this video. Because after watching this video, I was just reflecting over it. And I remembered one thing. A statement that Goodluck Jonathan made when he said that Nigeria is not a country. There's no nation called Nigeria. That Nigeria is just a mere geographical expression. I could remember those words. I could remember Goodluck making that speech sometime. That Nigeria is just a mere geographical expression. That there is no Nigerians. A country where terrorists is being protected than the civilians. A country where somebody will defend himself from a terrorist attack, and the court will jail the person that defended himself. In fact, to the extent that they will jail the person, they will sentence the person to life imprisonment or death by hanging. You know, now, once again, Dele Farotimi has said it. In fact, he said a lot of things, but I picked that word or that statement that Nigeria is destined to fail, like it was just a hard one, and it is really, really the truth. Honestly speaking, I don't see anything working in Nigeria. They said Nigeria is one. I don't see anything working. You know, there is no justice, there is no equity, there is no rule of law, there is nothing working. Now, this is not me trying to, you know, bring shame to Nigeria. No. As you know me, if you have been following me on this channel, you know that we always report it as it is. And of course, we always reject and speak against any form of crime in this channel. But here, we tell you the truth. What is really, really happening in Nigeria now is not something to write home about. There is killings from west to north, south and east, everywhere killing. As I'm talking to you now, maybe in my next video, I'm going to bring to you what is happening in Plateau State. what is happening in Plateau State as we are speaking today. There are killings upon killings upon killings everywhere. Every day, people are being unalived in Nigeria. Tell me, from east, west, north, and south, everywhere. And the worst thing is that the government is not doing anything. The government is not saying anything. Okay, let me tell you again. They said it is because of the unrest that is happening in Rivers State that, made them to remove the governor and install a sole administrator. Now, for the past 5 to 6 days now, Plateau State has been boiling. Like, if you know, don't worry, I'll bring it in my next video. Just do well to subscribe to this channel, because here we bring you informations and analyze it undiluted. We don't favor anybody. Excuse me. What we do here is to talk the truth as it is. And it is not any form of inciting violence, because I know some people will be thinking now that, oh, this boy is trying to incite violence. No violence. We don't incite any form of violence here. We condemn any form of crime. We are peaceful and we always preach peace. But what we are telling you on this channel is what is happening, real and reality. Now, let me give you a little time to watch this video that Dele Farotimi and watch some of the things that he said, because honestly speaking, you really need to watch this video. These are things you watch and you will know what is happening. As I always tell you, at this point, you don't need somebody to tell you what is happening. You should know what is happening. And one of the best ways you can do that is to subscribe to this channel, because I bring you information of everything that is happening in and outside Nigeria. All right, but please now watch this.
The heart-rending story of a young girl from one of the Bokos villages, a eyewitness account of how a father and a brother were butchered on their farm. That's part of the week that was. But like almost every other week that has been in Nigeria in recent times, and it didn't begin with Bulaba. This is not about partisanship. The reality is that the pain of being a Nigerian, the very effort to stay alive, is becoming quite draining, So I read that account. I just finished reading it before coming on here, and it left me even more despondent than I already was. So this part didn't even make it into my guardrail. I have my guardrail by which I would ordinarily seek to engage with you, but a story truly breaks the heart. It doesn't make sense in a country that is not declared to be at war, and even war is governed by rules. That's why you have the Geneva Convention. This does not make sense, and it's become normal, as abominable as it is. This has become normal in the country, Nigeria. But I'll go back to the way I planned to deal with this. So let's deal with the week that was as painful as the week as might have proven to be. Yeah, there was our action Gomino, who was busy telling us exactly how disconnected those who govern us have become from those that they govern. Look, when I was watching Sanwo-Olu on TV, vibrating by the work site, speaking pointless Dogonturenji to cover what was patently a show of institutional incompetence. It's not just about the Lagos State governor. I mean, how much can a governor really do? What He's not a class monitor now. He is meant to focus on the bigger job of envisioning and ensuring that everybody will do as they're meant to do. But what happened? The entire system failed. At least Umahi was decent enough to heap the blame on some other person instead of admitting to the systemic nature of the failing. The week that was, my driver who was sent to Lagos Island didn't return home until minutes to 4 in the morning. I had neighbors who slept in the traffic. Nobody got fired for it. Absolutely nobody. Like some skit makers ended up asking, what you want to define for Lagos Island? That's the extent of the way the government sees us. But how can I talk about the week that was and forget action woman Natasha? Her heart no fury, like a woman scorned. I wouldn't want to be a Pabio at a time like this. It's bad enough that they've done a fantastic job of showing us the extent of putrefaction that has overtaken our system, because that should be the extent of our interest in this corpus. Shouldn't extend beyond that. If you notice, Simi, I'm told, is busy looking for soft landing, somebody to cut a deal with him or Pulaba. He's not interested in the noise that you guys were making when you thought he was a proxy in your war with Wike. They don't send you. It was a family quarrel. They'll find a way to settle it within the family. It was never about the people of Rivers. Oh yeah, I'm told your president has traveled to his other country to go and play with his best friend, since you guys are always noisemakers, and he needs to assess exactly how much wonder he has performed in the 2 years in which he has afflicted you. And that assessment is best carried out in France, you see. And then I heard this Akama this morning, this was breaking. They're going to build you over 8,000 primary healthcare centers. I say, yeah, right. I see the ones they built in Lagos in the last 26 years. Believe that and you believe anything. They're going to build you a castle in the sky. Wait for it. It's coming. Yeah. I must again jump quickly to something that might seem completely unrelated to us, but it's very, very much related to us. The Trump juggernaut. The world is changing. That is the stark reality. The world is changing at an alarming pace. And these would have consequences. Nigeria is a country that already charges, I think, 100% interest. 100%. No, not interest, tariff, duty you pay on any imported vehicle. So the entire middle class has been rendered incapable of buying cars any longer, at least not brand new ones. And the used ones are not necessarily even any cheaper, really. But in that world, where we import everything, including the things we pretend to make locally, where our honorable minister was busy vibrating about how they should ban the importation of solar panels. Even the ones that are locally manufactured, over 90% of the content are imported. So we are essentially an import-dependent economy that is even dependent on importation for crude, even though we are a crude-producing country. And we have entered the age of Trump, where everything, the existing world order, is being turned upside down. Who are the people thinking for us in this age that we are entering? That is the week that was. Trump reminded us that the world as we knew it is done. The problem is we are horribly unprepared. So good morning, everybody. That was the week that was. It was a painful one. Sparing thought for those who are being killed every day in our country. Got a few seconds before 10 o'clock. I don't want to jump into my... Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock now. I was already yakking with our brethren, the early birds. I didn't have much to say. I only had pains to express in the first part. Mostly, we live in what fella attack the country of pain. May we survive the pains of Nigeria. I want to speak with you this morning on a subject I have titled Purposed to Fail. Nigeria, purposed to fail. If you have availed yourself the opportunity to download my second book, The Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution, if you have downloaded it, you will be familiar, or you've read it, or you're familiar with my works, especially in the past 5-6 years, you will be familiar with the subjects that I am forced to speak to this morning. I have dealt with these essentially in that book. It is still available for free download. Go to my website, delefarotimi.com. You can download that book for free. What I am going to be addressing this morning is merely one of the issues that I dealt with in that book. But because, as Yorubas will say, Bino Batonori Ejeokintonle Kono, for as long as the headlines endures, the fingernails must remain bloodstained. So I am forced to come back to speak to this issue because this is where we are right now. We're dealing with a state that was designed intentionally to fail because it is the purpose to which you would put anything that would influence its design. If I intended to carry plumbing materials, for instance, it's unlikely that I'm going to go buy a porch, or is it porch that you guys call it? Whatever. I wouldn't buy a luxury car to haul plumbing material. This is not designed for eating, so there is no way I would be looking to it and I wouldn't find the right design for a spoon. So it is the purpose to which you intend to put anything that influences the design of that thing. You see, the problem with Nigeria is that its designers couldn't possibly have had anything altruistic in mind whilst designing it. And one are the designers of Nigeria. It's the British, primarily. I think these should make the 125 years since the Berlin Conference, something along those lines. My older brother, Dele, has dealt extensively with research in this area, and he has spoken to the origins of Nigeria. But I have merely dealt with it at the surface level, and you might want to consider finding his books. He's got several of them, and he spoke to the root. But the key thing you must understand is that Satan will not dash you, and I use the word Satan in the biblical sense, not issue in our own cultural sense. Let me just say that Ekwensu or issue, our own Yoruba or Igbo, we will not give you a male goat, a he-goat, and not come back to demand the offspring. When somebody who had enslaved you, traded you as commodities, shot you for gain, dehumanized you, denied your history, obliterated your history, demonized your original spirituality, rendered you as vagabonds, treated us as chattels, when these are the ones who would sit down and design states based on the arbitrary strokes of their pen. When you find that this is their own motivation when they sat down to think of creating modern African states, it was purely for their own benefit. They did not create it with any regard or thought whatsoever for what would be of benefit or interest to those who are lumped together in the space they labeled Nigeria. In fact, it was the possession of a British commercial entity, the Royal Niger Company, before it was acquired. The Royal Charter was acquired, so we were in their eyes just merely a chattel, a place to be exploited. And then they came with colonialism. So we must understand that at no point were the inhabitants as individuals, or as what you would like to delude yourselves that you are, as citizens. Nobody asked us. They might have spoken with Awolowo, they might have had conferences with Azikiwe, they certainly spoke to Ahmadu Bello on behalf of people who even Ahmadu Bello probably didn't see as human per se, if he had the same Islamist worldview as today's ruiners of Nigeria. The point I am making is that your voices as individuals, your interest as individuals, it didn't matter to the British. So yes, the British designed a country that was meant to serve their own purpose in perpetuity. And they ensured that it had institutions verily designed to serve that purpose, even its educational system, the original spirituality that was destroyed to foster the Abrahamic religion, whilst the original spirituality was deliberately destroyed. The same grace that was available to the Romans in Acts of Apostles chapter 17 verse 23, completely unavailable to the Nigerian Christian. Our gods must be demonic. Eshu became Satan. Ekwensu became Satan. Everything about us became wrong. Felasa and Kolo mentality. We became a warped people. I'm saying all of this so that those of you who have always maintained that Nigeria must be broken must understand that when I argue with you and against your thesis, it is not born of an ignorance of the foundational problems that this Nigeria has. It was purposed, designed to fail. We can agree on that. All right? So if you are my Odua Republic brother, as distinct from the Yoruba Ponu idiots, I understand the fine distinction between my Republican brothers desirous of Odua Republic and those who have been weaponized with hatred and have become the Ronu gang. Very careful distinction. Now, you, my Odua Republican brother, and then those of you who have come to desire Biafra, and I'm not talking to those who have come to believe that murdering fellow victims legalizes a genuine grievance in taking up arms against their fellow victims. Let's be clear. We can speak to the grievance without endorsing the madness. I speak to that grievance. I accept its legitimacy. I do not endorse the violence, especially the one that is turned inward, as all violence eventually turns. So let's deal with the fact that Nigeria, yes, is designed to fail. And if it is allowed to continue along its current trajectory, it will fail. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It does not take a genius to know that that will happen if it continues along its current trajectories. Now, if we can all agree that Nigeria will fail if it continues to travel along its current trajectories, what then do we do if I continue to argue that you should not be talking about its division? I will explain myself to you, because it is sometimes an inability to define the scope of disagreement that usually leads to a tractable argument that ends up producing no solution. It is good to argue, but let us argue on what we disagree over. You know, we're talking about the fact that this country is purposed to fail. But if it is purposed to fail, who would be the victims of that failure? Because let us be clear, the beneficiaries of Nigeria, both its original creators, who would appear to be losing control of their creation these days as the world is shifting in the age of Trump. Don't worry, I won't drag you into that deep water, but let me just put it this way. Those who benefit from keeping together this criminal empire do not want to see it broken. They would rather kill each and every one of me and you rather than see it broken. And they are the purveyors of violence, and they have divided us sufficiently to make sure that they can maintain their hold on power for as long as we stay divided. The contradictions that are tearing Nigeria apart are many. But there is something that we must all begin to understand. A country that is designed to discount citizenship, that is found on ethnic rights, with no respect for either the citizen or the individual, cannot stand. It is designed and purposed to fail, because when your recognition is found only in a group and your humanity and individuality is discounted, it will not bode well. You do not build a society where the people are constantly yearning for justice and equity. How do you explain that in our country, Nigeria, in the upper week, we were all busy, united in our condemnation, largely united in our condemnation, rightly so too, of what took place in Uromi. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly today. You know, the problem with us, often manu, Yoruba people, once we see people across that water, everybody is Yamiri or Hausa. We're that simple in the way we embrace Nigeria. But the critical thing I'm seeking to put across is this. When what happened in Uromi happened, we were all universal, almost universal, in condemning the evil, even across the lines of our many divisions. And then, in this last week, this very last week that was, Untold numbers were slaughtered in Bokos. The same stories are coming out of Ondo State. The middle belt, particularly Benue, is not left out of this madness. But the thing is, the grief was not as universal. Voices that were loud in condemnation, rightly so, of the madness that took place in Europe were resoundingly loud in their silence when the madness in Bokos, in Ondo, in Benue happened. What happened to the outrage? And this leads me to begin to speak to something that I believe we all need to now begin to pay attention to. We cannot continue to lie to ourselves that our situation is normal. And as a friend of mine says, if you must solve a problem, you must first of all understand the problem. If a people as diverse as we are going to be able to live together at peace with each other, it can only happen when we are all submitted to laws. It cannot be that we have as a society subjectified the truth to the point where Fulani people carrying arms across multiple state lines are hunters whose death we rightly condemn, whose murders we rightly condemn as human beings, even if these were not exact, even if they were proven to have been terrorists and kidnappers. I do not believe that anything would have justified or excused their murder. But if we could find the capacity to be outraged by what happened to them, pray tell me, what happened to our sense of outrage in relation to the madness of this last week? And because it didn't start last week, the governor of Zamfara State is quoted. I didn't watch it, but I read multiple news reports, quoted as saying that terrorists were arrested, but their contacts in Abuja promised them that they will be released, and they were released. The governor of the state said this. This is not Dele Farotimi said. The governor of Zamfara State is said to have said this. It is either the truth or it is a lie. And until that governor comes out to deny it, and he has said similar things in the past, it must be taken as the truth. What kind of country operates such horrible double standards? But people are being rounded up in Uromi, rightly so. Why some persons have the powers of impunity. Jackson had just been sentenced to death for exercising his right to self-defense in his own farm after being stabbed multiple times in his own farm. And you say this country that is operating this kind of blatant double standard, occasioning blatant injustice would survive. And these are not episodes. These are systemic.
All right. Do we need to talk much? Drop your comment on the comment section what you think about it, all right? I'll see you in my next video. Please do well to subscribe, all right? I'll see you in my next video. God bless you.